Hello everyone. So this is a video directed at history optional aspirants. So others may choose not to watch and waste your time unless you have a plan to opt for history optional in the future. So for those with history as an optional subject, let me share my strategies, let me share my scoring formula which was able to help me crack this exam twice using history as an optional subject. And I, for one, should be deeply indebted to the subject of history, because the very reason I was able to land into some service in the first attempt was only because of history as an optional subject. So that's why, and not only that, in the second attempt, when I gave my second mains, I was able to significantly improve my marks by a factor of 50 marks. So that's why I feel these are methods that I should be sharing with all of you, so that many of you who would not have made it to the rank list in the previous attempts because of optionals not turning out to be very favorable may have something to gain out of this discussion. Alright. So there are various factors, there are various dimensions which I'll be discussing in this discussion. So this will be the first in the series of the videos that I'll be posting as a part of your history optional preparation in the upcoming weeks. Right? So until your mains gets over, I'll be constantly posting some interactive videos on history optionals. So in this first video, let me first tell you the core objective of this session. Over the years, when I see history optional students, I find history optional students can fit into three categories. There are those aspirants who get around 220 to 250 marks. And then there are aspirants who get in the range of 250 to 280. Right? And then there are 280 plus aspirants. I have never seen anybody with history optional scoring extremely low marks. The reason is because most aspirants, they do read history in some way or the other for general studies, so there is no reason for them to score less than 200 marks. So with this having said, these are the three different ranges in which we find aspirants. And those aspirants who get 280 plus or 270 plus, they are the ones who will make it to the top 100 ranks. Rank 1 to 100. To get into that, you need to have really good optional score, and if history is your optional, the top 100 rank candidates will always have scores more than 270 or 280 plus. Right? Or if you want to get into your most preferred service, again, you should be the top 10 percentile with respect to your respective optional, and same goes true with history as well. And then there are aspirants in the range of 250 to 280 who will definitely make it to some rank. You will find your name in the rank list, maybe somewhere lower in the rank list. Then there are aspirants in 220 to 250. Probably most of them will not even get an interview call in the first place. And even if they get an interview call, very few, select few, just because probably personality test would have rewarded them extremely well, 200 plus, or maybe essay would have gone completely in their favor, 135, 140. If only such miracles happen, very few, handful of maybe 5% of all the history optional students who fit into this category may even make it to the rank list. Right? So this is how I find aspirants. And many aspirants who would not even clear mains, they would fit into this particular category. Your score would probably be in the range of 220 to 250. The purpose of today's session is simply to ensure those aspirants in the range of 220 to 250, at the end of the session, you must get to know about how you can push yourself to the next category of 250 to 280. This is definitely possible in the next 85 days. This is very much possible. Similarly, those aspirants who have in the previous attempt got 250 to 280, you should also learn something as to how to push yourself to 280 plus. How do you get into the toppers league? Right? That should also be learned by you at the end of this session. The reason why I say this is, it's very doable, because I did this within the gap between my prelims and mains when I gave my first attempt in the year 2013. So my history score was just 225. See, every year the scores are relative. You cannot compare one year's score with another year and say that, oh, just for 225 he was able to get into IRS. No, that's not the case. In some years, even 300 may not be too good, but in some years, even 220s may be, 250s may be the highest marks. So in 2013, my score was 225, right? And my All India rank was 652. I got into IRS. And the next year, 2014, my score in history was 275. My All India rank was 116. I got into IAS. So as you can see, there is a 500 mark jump which actually took place. And this is because, 500 rank jump which took place, and this is solely because of this 50 mark jump that happened in history optional. Almost in all other areas, my performance actually did not improve. GS was almost on the same lines. In the personality test in the year 2013, my score was 185. Next year, it was 195. Right? It was, of course, a 10 mark increase was there. But again, I wouldn't consider that to be too good a jump. But in history, there was definitely a great leap that actually took place. Right? And how did I manage to do that? And how can you also do that? So what I'm going to talk from now on, it's a distillation of my own experience as well as having seen aspirants over the years. How are they able to do that? So it's a sum total of all these wisdom which I would like to share with you. Right? So let's take the session slow. Let's have meaningful discussion. Let's have a deep conversation. Let's not be too much concerned about time, because I do not believe in conveying all the message in 5 minutes or a 10 minutes video just because your attention span is less. No, certain things will take its own time to be conveyed. Alright, so pay keen attention to what I have to say. So when it comes to history optional, the first thing is you should know about how much of time allocation should be done in the next upcoming weeks. Alright, because in my case, my 50 mark jump actually happened by completely losing sight of GS. I just did not touch a single GS subject. I did not read anything in GS between my prelims and mains in my second attempt. I'm not talking about my first attempt. First attempt, of course, I had to read and cover all GS topics. But once I knew the method of cracking this exam, I decided it's my optional which is going to really uplift me, and I was very clear about that. So I decided to simply just ignore GS. All I was doing for 13 or 14 hours every day for 90 days between prelims and mains was just studying my history optional. Right? So that was my understanding of where I stood, what I need to do. So that's why I cannot give one single formula as to this is the amount of time you should actually start investing with respect to history optional from now on. I cannot give one straitjacket answer like that. But instead, I would classify all the aspirants who have history optionals and who are about to appear in this year's mains into 4 categories. Right? And those 4 categories of aspirants is determined by 2 factors. One is your existing history content and knowledge. Next is how proficient are you when it comes to writing. It's the combination of these 2 factors which will decide where you actually stand. Right? Let's take the case of this first quadrant. What is first quadrant? Basically, your history content is also good and your writing skill is also good. So you may ask me, sir, how can I even know that I fit into this quadrant? It's very simple. If you have got around, let's say, 220, no, not 220, if you have got around 240 plus last year, right, in the last civil service exam 2024, if you have managed to get 240 plus in your history optional, I would say that you would fit into the first category. You would fit into the first quadrant. Alright? Or if you have not even given your optional exam last year or the year before that, but if you feel confident that you have finished all NCRTs, you have finished Bipin Chandra, or let's say Spectrum thoroughly, okay, if you have done some reading beyond that, let's say it could be the IGNOU documents, or it could be A.L. Basham, or it could be J.L. Mehta, right? If you have had some exposure to any of, not any, almost all of these resources, I would say that your history content would actually be such that it can fit you into that first quadrant of aspirants who are good with content as well as with writing skills. Alright, so the classic test of whether you fit into the first quadrant is if you have already completed all the mandatory minimum reading resources. I'm not asking you to go and you should have read Romila Thapar or Irfan Habib, Sumit Sarkar. That's not what I'm saying. I'm only saying you should have finished reading Spectrum thoroughly. You should have finished reading R.S. Sharma, Satish Chandra, Jail Mehta. If you have done all of that, that doesn't mean you're automatically ready to get 280 plus. No, that's not going to happen. This has a certain method to it. I'm only saying if you have already done that, or if you have already proven to yourself by getting 240 plus marks in your previous mains, it means that you belong to the first quadrant. Right? So, and if you have not appeared in mains earlier, from your own relative assessment, if you feel that you can write easily, there is no grammatical issues when you write, there is a clear coherence of thought, there is a continuous narrative which is very visible when when another person reads a third person reads your content, right? That coherence of ideas is maintained and there is a very satisfying flow to the narrative. If this all is there, it really means that you belong to this first quadrant, right? So for such aspirants who belong to the first quadrant, I would say that please don't waste your time writing mindlessly umpteen number of tests. I do not believe in the efficacy of tests to improve your writing. Tests are ways to reassure yourself that you can maintain your calmness in the heat of the moment. Tests are ways to reassure yourself that you can manage time, allocating equal amount of time across different areas and questions. Test is a way of reassuring yourself that you know what combination of questions are to be attempted. It's just to simulate a real exam feel. I do not believe that writing tests is going to improve your quality of writing, nor is it going to improve the quantity of your content. Both require a different approach. Okay, so if you are already good with history content, if you have already scored 240 plus, it means that UPSC has given a brand, it has given a recognition to you that you are fit enough. Just go and work on your unfilled gaps, all those glaring omissions that stand between you and success. Go and fill that. That needs more studying, that needs more exposure to the right content and right materials and right reading resources. That doesn't need more and more and more exhausting tests. Tests are for a different purpose, it's for a different set of audience. Right? You can also take tests. You may also take tests once in a fortnight just to assure yourself that yes, you can manage the questions within time. Okay? But don't get into this writing spree. Don't get into this daily a mindless behavior of every day writing 10 questions. It serves no purpose because you already have the content, right? What are you going to prove by just translating the content on a piece of paper? But instead, I feel there is so much of work to be done. So if you're good with history content, if you're good with writing skills, my aim is to make sure you get into the top 1 to 100 ranks. And it is very, very doable if you can properly allocate time for essay as well as for ethics paper and a very creative way of studying history. Right? That creative aspect of studying history, a very interesting way of studying history is what you need to focus rather than doing a hard labor work of writing tests unnecessarily. Instead, focus your time, split it between essay, split it between ethics paper, because it's these two papers which can again give you a quantum jump like the jump I had in history optional, like 50 mark jump. Similarly, a 20 or 30 mark jump is actually possible in essay and ethics paper compared to your previous performance. Whereas in general studies, such jumps are very rare, because even if you were to get the jump in general studies paper 1, because history being your optional, I wouldn't assure you of the same jump happening in GS paper 3, right? So GS paper 1, 2, 3, it's more like a even sum game. It's like some papers you may get a 10 mark jump, your peer competitor may get another 10 mark jump in another paper. So I don't really have that great hope that a quantum jump for all aspirants who invest time is possible in the GS papers. It may not even work, but definitely for essay, ethics, put together, if you actually spend time very judiciously, plan and execute, you can combine essay and ethics. You can achieve a 40-mark jump beyond what you have scored in your previous years, right? And in addition to that, you make sure you also plan your time for history optional, and what should you be doing in this time. That's more important, right? Whatever time you spend, how are you going to spend your time with respect to history optional? Is it going to be like every day for 2 hours you're going to write answers? No, that's not the case. Since you feel that you're already good with content, since UPSC has already tested you and proven to you that you can get more than 240, which means you're pretty decent with your content. Now what you have to do is fill in the gaps, take your syllabus sheet, figure out all those grayish areas which we don't really focus. Harappan civilization, everybody is good at it. Gupta Empire, all heritage and cultural accomplishments, we are all good with it. But how many of us are really good with early medieval period? Do you know the entire political history of Chalukyas, Pallavas, Rashtrakutas, Cholas? This could be a gap in your preparation. Similarly, the Bhakti movement in different parts of India could be a gap. You may know that the Tamil Bhakti movement, you may know the Tamil literary developments following Bhakti spread. But what about Bhakti in different parts of India? Who are the different specific Bhakti saints? Are you clear about it? Are you clear about them? So are you very familiar with all the technological advancements that took place during Delhi Sultanate period? Or are you sure about the agricultural developments, agricultural system that was existing during the time of Mughals? The reason is because these are areas which we don't really encounter as we read our standard books. Let's say Satish Chandra NCRT, or even if you read J.L. Mehta, you don't get adequate amount of ideas on these micro aspects of your history optional syllabus sheet. And it is from these areas where, if a slightly tricky question is asked, you will hardly be left with content to extend the answer beyond the first one page. To be honest, you cannot even write an answer beyond half a page for questions asked from all these gray areas which are often neglected. So as somebody who feels that you're already good with content, and if you fit into this first quadrant, your work is simply to make sure all these rough edges, all these gaps that are existing in your preparation is all completely satisfyingly fulfilled. And this happens with investment of time into selected targeted areas. So since you're already decent with history, please don't waste your time taking your book and reading from first page, chapter by chapter. No. Look at the syllabus sheet, look at that one, identify 10 weakest areas per theme. Let's say medieval India is a theme. Identify 10 words in the history optional syllabus sheet which you feel you have zero idea about, or you have very less idea. Now make sure you are the best when it comes to these 10 themes. From there, move to ancient, move to modern. Okay, so this is what I mean by gap filling. This is what should be done for aspirants, by aspirants who are pretty decent with history as well as you know how to write. Which means that the time that could have been spent writing tests could have been spent writing daily answer writing. Okay, so who should do daily answer writing? I'll just come to that. It is for those aspirants who fit into the second quadrant, which means those who are good with history as a content, but who lack in writing skills. Writing skill is on the negative side. Or content is good. There are aspirants. For them, a daily answer writing is suggested, and I'll tell you even that has a methodology to it and how to execute it. I'll just come to that. But if you are someone who are really good with content as well as writing skills, this gap filling should be your first most important priority, rather than going and sitting in 10 different tests. That is meaningless, right? Identify 10 different weakest areas in ancient, 10 weakest areas in medieval, 10 weakest areas in modern, 10 in world history. So you have 40 areas to prepare and master. And I'm very sure, even if you spend 6 hours to 8 hours every day, I think you only have time 85 days to master these 40-45 areas. That is what will ensure when you go and face the examination. Let's say you face paper 1, right? You have 4 questions from ancient, you have 4 questions from medieval. And let's say the 6th question of medieval has 3 parts, A, B and C. A is familiar to you, C is just a repetition of a previous year's question, but B happens to be the most trickiest question. Why is it tricky? Because it is asked from one among the 10 weakest areas that you had with respect to medieval. It is to prevent you from having a downfall of your confidence when you face such kind of questions. When your confidence levels are high, your performance automatically is decently good, right? So that is why our best preparation is to ensure your confidence levels remains intact throughout those 3 hours, and that will only happen when you know, okay, I chose question 6, every single sub question within that is actually known to me, and for you to come to that state, you need to actually invest time strengthening those weakest areas, right? So I hope I have made sense to aspirants who fit into this first quadrant, right? Your purpose, your priority is to, one is to equally divide time on the most fertile areas like essay, ethics and history optional, right? Or let's say every day you divide your time between either essay or ethics plus the GS aspect of your upcoming week's test series. Let's say the upcoming week you have GS paper 2 as a test series syllabus, right? So 3-4 hours a day only read that particular test portions, right? Plus with respect to history optional, please don't take tests. Maybe take tests once in 2 weeks, and I would be happy if that is only a half test and not a full test. Don't waste your time thinking that writing will automatically make you rectify the problem of the previous years. I know so many aspirants whose marks do not improve at all over year after year after year. The reason is because they don't actually understand where that improvement has to be directed, right? So if you feel that you're good with content, if you have decent writing skills, now is the time to strengthen those weak links. That weak links which actually prevent your chances of choosing one particular question combination itself. It is when you fail to choose a question combination, because you will find that 8 questions are there. In all the 8 questions, you know perfect answer for one sub question within a particular question. But in all the questions, you have zero idea about one question. That is like the biggest troublemaker for you on the day of your exam. It is to prevent you from such problems. I'm advising you this strategy. Alright. Now coming to aspirants who would fit into the second quadrant. Okay, what do we mean by the second quadrant of aspirants? And now coming to the second category of aspirants. So these are aspirants whose history content is pretty good, but your writing skills are not on par. How do you figure it out? In your previous mains, if throughout your GS papers, across your GS papers, your scores has been on the lower side, lower than the average, it means you fit into this category, right? This is for those who have already given an attempt, but you yourself will be having this feel that compared to your friend, your grammar is not good, your sentence formation is not good. Though you have been interested in history, you have been reading history in the last 2-3 years, and this is going to be your first mains, and you feel you're not good with writing skills, right? For such aspirants, your content is good. Why? Because you have been reading for quite some time, right? But when it comes to your marks across GS papers, they have been on the lower side. Or for those who have not even appeared in mains, this could be a second or third attempt, but you have your own personal judgment that your writing skill is not good. For such aspirants, how should you be allotting time and what should you be doing? Let me tell you that. You should be doing a daily answer writing practice, right? With respect to history questions. Okay. So you can take up, let's say, 2 to 3 questions per day. There is a nuance to it. Please pay attention and listen to what I have to say. Simply writing answers without getting the right feedback is also not going to do any good to you, right? Instead, what you should do is you should write an answer. Okay, maybe out of 3 questions, choose one interesting, very new question from some academy's test series or from some mentor's questions, and 2 more questions could be a previous year's question, right? No harm in doing writing practice with this. Okay, what you have to do is, if your writing skill is weak, okay, write an answer. Now look at the answer key. Okay, look at the answer key. Figure out where your writing has actually been deviant from the demand of the question, where you're not able to rightly break the interpretation of the question. Right? There could be some issue as a result of which your answer has turned out to be very shabby. It has turned out to be not very satisfying to the reader. Right? So once you get a feedback, right, when your mentor or when your teacher, whoever corrects your answers, when they say that no, this answer doesn't really fit to the benchmark standards, in that case what you should do is go have a look at your answer key, and now go to the textbook, read the same content in the language in which it is written in the textbook, try to emulate that language, and now come and rewrite an answer. Right? Basically, you're presenting the same content, you're simply trying to change the style of delivery. Right? I have seen this method actually work wonders for aspirants with poor writing skills. It is those with poor writing skills who need daily answer writing. But again, this should not be a very monotonous, mindless exercise. It's not like you write 3 answers every day, throw it away, forget about it, go with your other work. No, that's not how it works. You write an answer, get a feedback, or if not a feedback, at least do some self-assessment as to why is it that I'm not able to write it in the way it's written in the textbook. Now come, read the textbook. Since your mind is troubled, since you feel that you are not able to do your best, automatically there is a need that is generated. Once that need is generated, now when you go and when you read the books, you will actually start ingesting the language in which it is written in the textbooks. Right? And when you're able to ingest that, now when you're able to rewrite the same answer, see, because when the first time when you wrote an answer, your mind has to do 2 work at the same time. One is content extraction, next is content molding as a narrative. But now the content has been already extracted, so a lot of brain space is now freed up, which can be devoted for content molding. Right? Now automatically the quality of the answer that you write will also improve. Okay? So this is how, when you slowly start observing your own improvement that you're making, you will understand that this is the way to go forward. And definitely, whatever you have now rewritten, right? See, every day you write 3 answers. So 85 days, you have some 240 to 250 questions for which you would have written answers, you would have rewritten answers. Definitely out of that, at least 10 questions will find repetition on the day of your examination. And in all those 10 questions, you will be able to do a very good job, almost on par with those people who have the innate capacity to write well. This is the only way you can match up your deficiency. Otherwise, despite having good content, your scores will be stuck in the range of 220 to 250 mark all the time. I know aspirants, even when they prepared along with me, they had better knowledge than me, but their writing skills were not on par. Right? And even in the recent years as well, I've seen aspirants with tremendous content, but there is something missing in that writing, as a result of which their scores keep on hovering in this range. Right? So this is the only way you can break it. Right? So here are some suggestions that I have. Give more focus for daily writing, 2 hours a day at least write. Okay? For 30-40 minutes for history writing. Then again reading the content, then once again rewriting it. Now you don't need 30-40 minutes. The time will definitely shrink. Maybe you can do the same practice with respect to your general studies answers as well. Because writing is a problem that actually spreads across all papers. It's not something that is confined only to history. Writing problems will definitely spill over into your GS papers as well. So this kind of a daily answer writing practice will do benefit for people with deficiency in writing skills. Right? And you are those who should write definitely 1 essay a week. Right? See, why do I say this with so much of confidence is, I put myself in the shoes of aspirants. And the minute I cleared my exam first time, okay, for my second attempt, I did not put my pen on paper until the day of my mains examination. The reason is because I already had complete confidence on my writing skills. I knew that in my previous attempt, since it was my very first attempt, the time of preparation was less, my content was a bit lacking. And I know that I'm reading, I'm doing my best. So I was able to easily increase the content. So that's why I say that people who know and who confidently believe you have good skills of writing, the solution to get a good jump of marks is not just by writing again and again. But people who feel and who have been proved by UPSC that no, your writing is not up to the mark by getting low scores across GS papers, right? If you have scored low across GS papers, it's a clear indication that your writing is not good enough. In that case, you should do daily answer writing, both for history optional as well as for GS. For history optional, I've already told you the method. Method is take some 3 questions a day. 1 should be a new question to infuse that spontaneity. 2 can be previous year's questions. And now write answers, get a feedback, evaluation. In the light of the feedback, look into the content of the textbook. You will feel that flow in the textbook. Now come and address this issue by rewriting the answer, right? So this is a method as to how those with good content but with poor writing skills can see improvement. Okay, this will definitely bring you in 280 range. Yes, you may not get 300 plus range, but definitely you'll be somewhere around 280 if you can keep on doing it, because you already have the benefit of having good command over the content. Writing, all these sharpening, fine tuning, all that has to be done. It will definitely work well, right? Now let's take the case of aspirants whose content itself is on the lower side, right? It could be your very first attempt in prelims. Now you may end up cracking prelims. You suddenly find yourself appearing in mains. Or it could be just your second attempt, and all through your 2 years you have been only focused on clearing prelims. If that is the case, you would actually fit into either this spectrum or this spectrum, right? You may be an aspirant with low content in history. Sometimes you may be somebody who with good writing skills. See, because writing skill is independent of the content, right? Because you have not spent time with history, your content is less. But that doesn't mean that your writing skills also have to be necessarily poor. Sometimes your writing skills can be really good, right? But your content has not actually accumulated because the time that you have invested is lesser. So for such kind of aspirants, I'll tell you what is the quick fix solution in the next 85 days. What can you do? You have to only focus on one part per paper. That is, in paper 1, you have ancient and medieval. Just take one part. I would actually advise such aspirants to go with ancient, even though my strong area in paper 1 would be medieval. I always go for medieval answers in paper 1, modern India in paper 2. And there are some reasons for that. But for those aspirants who are poor in content, it's better you go with ancient. The reason why I say this is because ancient, the time that you put in will also spill over into advantage in map areas as well, because medieval is like a totally new area to conquer. But in my opinion, studying medieval is actually more easier, it's more interesting, it's more clear, because the factual data is all very concrete, it's all solid. Whereas ancient India, it's all imaginations, it's all theories, it's all probabilities. So I have never felt very solid, I've never felt very confident when reading ancient India. But since you guys are running short of time, only 85 days are left, and your content is lesser, I would advise you to focus more on ancient. Only try to manage medieval India, right? Get some, let's say you spend time like 60% for ancient and 40% for medieval when it comes to paper 1 preparation. This can be one way of doing things. But if you are also like me and you feel, so no sir, medieval is where I feel my strength lies, then focus 60% of the time on medieval. But don't try to spread out your attention and your time span trying to conquer both the areas. That is not going to work, because time is short. And at least by choosing and strengthening ancient India, first is map questions. You can get at least 50% of the marks in map question, if not 40% at least. This is doable in the next 85 days. And then make sure you're so good with ancient India. See, in ancient India, you will not be completely at loss for an answer to even initiate an answer. But in medieval India, the chances of that happening is very high, because there are just so many areas, so many micro areas in medieval India. But in ancient, you don't have so many micro ideas. You can always guess some answers. So I don't feel starting an answer is a problem in ancient India. You can always fill in some content, right? So that's why in ancient India, you can even write some stories and make it relevant to the demand of the question, which is actually not possible in medieval. Medieval source, events, personalities, incidents, influences, it should all be crystal clear, referenced with historical sources. That's what makes medieval challenging as well as more scoring also, right? But since your time is short, make sure you're so good with ancient that you choose 3 out of 5 questions that you're supposed to write. See, 1 question is mandatory in medieval, that first set of 5 questions, right? So make sure you choose 3 questions from ancient. Such should be the direction in which you should direct your preparation, right? This is a common formula for both aspirants, group of aspirants in the 3rd and 4th quadrant. That is for those aspirants with low history content and with varying writing skills, some good, some bad, for both the aspirant categories. My solution is focus on ancient India in paper 1, focus on modern India in paper 2. The reason is modern India, you are already familiar by the reading of spectrum. You have read enough of spectrum for your general studies, right? So that is the reason why I ask you to focus on modern India. And modern India, similarly, you can make some guesswork, right, when it comes to what is the economic fallouts of British colonial Raj in India. Even though you may not know exact answers, you can still talk something about deindustrialization. You can guess something. But in world history, there are just so many areas beyond Europe. You have Malay Peninsula, you have Philippines, you have Indochina, you have Latin America, you have Mexico. And unless you are very clear about the liberation struggles in all these areas with very tangible ideas and points, you may not be really able to justify good answers, right? So the same potential of, the same advantage that ancient India has with respect to guessing answers, with respect to just starting an answer and taking it forward without it not being too wrong, the same advantage lies for modern India as well, right? So understand that not all history optional aspirants should be given the same formula to prepare for the next 85 days. It all depends upon your perception of where your strength lies, your perception of whether you're good with content, whether you're good with writing skills, or you're good at both the areas. Depending on that, this is the idea that you should actually do. So for aspirants in these 2 categories, focus on ancient India, modern India, right? Study for 6 to 8 hours a day. Do daily previous year question writing. For the aspirants of the 2nd category, for this spectrum, I've already told, do interesting question selection, like once random question. The reason is because you already know some content, so it's time you infuse that element of surprise by facing challenging questions. But for aspirants who are going to write their first mains and not so good with history content, you cannot face surprises. You need to first build the basic blocks. That's why I have only written here, do daily previous year question writing. Don't seek for more and more challenging questions. You have a lot of distance to first cover. And that first coverage should only be focused upon previous year's questions. Because 70% of your history optional questions in the upcoming year can be traced in some way or the other to the previous year's questions. Just make sure you write PYQs, 3 previous year's questions every single day on whatever topic you read for 5 to 6 hours a day. On that same topic, take 2 to 3 previous year's questions. Just try to write answers for that, right? This can actually bring those aspirants who are giving your very first attempt with less content exposure. You can be brought to a range of 250 plus marks if you keep doing this practice every day, right? And yes, you should be taking tests, because since it's going to be your first attempt, or it's going to be your first meaningful attempt, you need to really feel that stress. You need to really feel that the race against time. You need to feel how your own emotions can defeat you, right? To simulate all that. But be cautious that you don't exhaust yourself writing tests. That's why I've given here, just take half tests. You don't have to take full tests. Don't write a 500 mark test every week or 250 mark test every week. That's not necessary. You just take some 125 mark test. Just just two questions from ancient India, right? Two question combination, that is, first question has 3 question combination, second question has another 3 more questions, something like this, right? Per week or fortnightly. I think that much is sufficient, right? Just 2 weeks before your mains, appear in a full test, appear in a proper history optional, a full test covering paper 1 as well as paper 2. This can be done just 2 weeks before your real optional examination. Until then, don't exhaust. Give half tests. That's just to verify whatever you have learned, is it coming to your rescue when you face tough questions or not. It's just to assure yourself that you're able to complete writing each and every page in a certain amount of time. It's for time management I'm asking you to take tests. It is simply for infusing that first level of surprise. I'm asking you to write a test, right? So this is the strategy for what you should be focusing and how much of time should you be allocating for history optional preparation in the next 85 days, depending upon where you actually stand. Alright, so with this being clear, let's move on to the next area. The next aspect to be discussed here is with respect to the importance of original content building. As I told you, the only activity I was doing between my prelims and mains was just adding, building on more and more content from different sources, right? And I did not really care to even know whether a platform like Study IQ back then even existed or not. It's because I knew I had all the books in my hand, and I know that there was nothing that's not available in the combination of books, right? Because a lot of students, when they talk to me, they always tell me that, sir, I need to subscribe to this material. You're not even given classes. You're simply given some PDFs, and for that you're paying money, right? My question is, why would you do that? And moreover, when you read from somebody else's distillation of ideas, that doesn't actually hold on to you, but when you seek, when you explore the pages of a book, and when you try to figure out, oh, this seems to be more relevant, this idea seems to be more relevant, when you are able to imagine the potential of the content that is there in the textbook, the longevity of that content in your memory is actually higher. Whereas I take a set of ideas and give it to you, you read it, within the next 2 days you will forget it. There is a certain power to your own original seeking, right? And it is, I would say, the only reason this 50-mark jump happened was because I built narratives, I built content in a connected format. And let me also point out to you the success stories of 2 other toppers. This is the content of a girl by the name Nausheen. She got All India rank 9 in Civil Service Exam 2023, right? And this is a Telegram channel of this year's topper, Avdija Gupta, All India rank 43. The point is, both of them, they are history graduates. They have the undergraduation done in history. Same is the case with Shruti Sharma as well. And why do I take their names? It's because they are all toppers who have scored in single digit or double digit ranks. Shruti Sharma is All India rank 1, Civil Service Exam 22 or 21 maybe. And 2023 we had Nausheen with All India rank 9, and this year we have this Avdija Gupta with All India rank 43. The point is, when you read her Telegram channel posts, you get to understand how much of importance all these. You can pause this screen here and go through this content in the red box. You can understand the importance of note making, content making, right? Each and every topic from the syllabus should be picked up. That should be the heading of the page. Write down only after understanding the topic well, and write it in a chronological order. So it all indicates a lot of efforts that goes into original content making. None of them have actually borrowed some other academy's content. None of them have read some other topper's content. Instead, what they have done is they have made their own content. And to understand the depth of how much of original work has gone into the making of their content, that's why I want you to go and go through some of the history material that Nausheen had shared in her Telegram channel. When you go and explore the content in the form of notes that she had made, you'll be actually able to understand why some people get more than 300 plus marks. Just because of the quantum of content, the differentiating content, which means that they have invested time. It's as simple as that, and that is what I want you to do as well. So if you're already good with history, only invest time in certain areas. Those gray areas, become really good with them. If you're a complete beginner, as I told you, invest in select themes. Let it be only ancient India, let it be only modern India. But some way or the other, this 85 days until the day of your exam should be devoted to very good content building. So now comes this question as to how do you build content, and please do have a look at Nausheen's material on medieval India. You'll be able to understand how much of historical sources has been brought in her content. Right? It could be about Balban, but Balban's life would be portrayed in Tabaqat-e Nasiri, Minhaj Suraj. Tabaqat-e Nasiri will have something to talk about Balban. Amir Khusrau's work would have something to talk about Balban. Right? Or every historical source, credence will all be found in Nausheen's collection of her content. And this is why you have to look at Topper's material. It's not because you have to learn out of her content. See, when I go through her content, I cannot learn anything. I don't find, I'm not able to visualize the invisible links between each and every idea. She knows it because she has read and made the content, but I'm not able to figure out those invisible links. And any study material that you purchase online in the market is just a copy paste of all these content, just scattered and splattered and splashed here and there. So there is no organic links and connections. That is why when you write answers after reading such cut copy paste content, your answers are also not good to read. Right? It's not. It doesn't fit into as a cogent narrative, a coherent narrative. But when you read from your book, after reading, try to think about what have you read. Now try to write it down in the form of a document, a 5-page or a 10-page summary of any chapter that you read from any of your history book should be translated as a summary. That's what these guys have been doing. All these toppers, what they have been doing is, they read a book, right? I'll tell you what was my way of doing content generation. My way of doing content generation is, let's say, I read this book. It's Shekhar Bandyopadhyay's From Plassey to Partition. So when I read this book, my first reading is just like reading a novel. I don't even underline anything. I just read it like a novel, page after page after page. And I know my reading speed. I read at a speed of 10 pages per hour. And I know that this book has something like 500 pages. So if I can only spend 50 hours, right, I'll be able to finish it. So probably in a week, I'll be done with a great book on modern India. So once I'm done in a week study, I'm done with this entire book. I make a plan, right? When I was an aspirant, I used to make a plan as to, okay, first chapter is from page 1 to page 37. Now time is 10 o'clock. Let me study non-stop till 2 o'clock. Till 2 o'clock I study, finish one chapter, throw this book away, now do something else. Next day, come to the second chapter. This is my way of how I finish this entire book as if I'm reading a novel. Once the first reading is done, now what I do is I go for second reading. And in the second reading, I take a chapter, read it, now close my book, take a notebook, put the chapter's heading, transition into 18th century. Without seeing whatever have I read, I just write it in the form of summary of 1/10 of its size. Let's say, if this chapter is of 50 pages, I make sure I write at least for 5 pages as a summary. Whatever I'm able to recollect out of the 50 pages, I make it as a summary of 5 pages. So at the end of the day, after reading this entire book, now I have a good summary that I have made for 50 pages. Imagine I would have done the same work for Bipin Chandra, 3 books of Bipin Chandra. So I'll be having a 192 pages notebook or a 220 pages notebook only for modern India. That notebook is my first compaction of all the ideas that really mattered to me, all the ideas that really impacted me when I read my book. That is what is written in the first draft, right? And let me tell you, it is this first draft which I have made, out of which my answers in my test series will actually be extracted. So I don't extract answers from the textbook when I write a test, right? So when I write a test, let's say there's a question on Chalukya Pallava conflict, my mind doesn't go to the textbook. Rather, my mind goes into the note that I have written. And from that, whatever matters, I extract it and I'm able to present it as an answer, right? This is the process that should be at work, right? You cannot expect perfect retrieval of content from a textbook or a study material directly when you write a test series. There should be an intermediary process. That intermediary process is your own content building. And until this intermediate process happens, you will never get that confidence that you have mastered and you have created a flow of thoughts connecting all parts of history. That will never develop in you, as a result of which your history approach is always about memorization of more and more ideas. It's not about your own your own narration. It's not your own sequencing and structuring of ideas, out of which, see, your notebook is like your own work of history, and it is out of that you should feel you can pick and choose content for answering the questions, right? That is the level of expertise you should reach, because that is the level of expertise I had reached, these toppers have reached as well. So that is why my suggestion is, when it comes to original content building, that is why don't purchase any PDF materials from the self-study website and all of that. It's for the losers, right? See, even toppers would have purchased, it's all out of fear of missing out. But the real content for them is all done out of the textbooks. Maybe for 10 or 20% of the gray areas which they felt that the textbooks do not really give them concrete content. For that, a ready-made easy source could be the self-study material and all of that. But 80 to 90% of the content that is made by the toppers is all because of their own scrolling through the pages of textbook, and that is what you should be doing as well. And what are the books and how should you deal with that, I'll be discussing in the subsequent videos. This is not the video for that. This is simply a video to acclimatize you to how toppers behave, how toppers plan and execute these 85 days. And trust me, this 85 days is more than sufficient for a beginner in history to get more than 250 marks. And if you already have started history, you have already given history in your previous attempts, it is very much doable to get more than 280 plus marks if you do these activities. But if you feel slightly nervous, if you feel that, oh, this is consuming time, okay, I don't think there's any value to doing this, you will once again, you will slide down and you will go back to the same range in which you will be stuck between 220 to 250. Right? It's to break that I'm giving you all these suggestions. Be original, be authentic, right? Be authentic in your efforts. No, Shruti Sharma had never copied her content from any topper. Nausheen had never copied her content from Shruti Sharma's notes. This is how year after year toppers in history or in any other optional are generated. They create their own content for others to emulate. You also be like them. Right? So that's why I have written here, note making is not mindless copying. Right? You read a chapter, certain ideas have really impacted you. Certain ideas you felt a very enlightening moments when you read those ideas, and those ideas are the ones which now have to be translated into your notebook. Right? That's why I feel note making is not like you open the textbook and just simply start writing the years and dates and names. No. It's a set of events which follows one after the other, which has a precedent, which has a successive idea, right? And when you keep on writing it down, you create a coherent, a commonsensical narrative, and that narrative will last long in your memory, right? So look at the fourth point I have mentioned here. Use toppers notes to get ideas about the depth to which the topics are explored. That's why I ask you to read the content. When you read the content, you'll understand, oh my God, look at the depth that she has gone into. I hardly know superficial knowledge on these topics. If you feel that your knowledge is so superficial, it means, and when you compare it against her notes, you will be able to understand those 10 weakest areas. You remember 10 weakest areas? How do you even figure it out? By comparing your ideas with the topper's material. Right? For example, in civil disobedience movement, you may have sufficient ideas about it. But to know about the role of capitalist in Indian national movement, you may not have sufficient ideas. But when you go through the topper's notes, you feel Purushottam Das, Thakur Das, what was his stand on so-and-so movements. When all of those are actually written and made as notes, now it strikes a sense in you how insufficient your preparation on this particular topic actually is. Now go and fill in those gaps. That's why I ask you to go have a look at toppers notes to find out the depth to which the topics are explored. Alright, so this is the most important work that should go, even if you write test or not. See, basically writing test without doing this process is a waste of time, because the same deficient knowledge that you have will keep on being reproduced in test after test after test. That's of no use. You'll always find your marks just stuck between 220, 240 marks. It's not going to improve at all. That's why this is the magic formula. This original content building is like the link that's going to take you from one level of mark range to the next level of mark range. You do this, your scores will improve. All right. Let's move on to the next idea that I have to discuss. That's with respect to map preparation strategy. Let's have a realistic expectation out of map, right? In the last 2 or 3 years, I find the map questions are becoming really difficult, and I'll tell you the reasons for that. Students are really good with a few areas in map. What are those areas? With respect to all Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Chalcolithic sites, you are familiar with that, right? Or maybe you are very familiar with Mahajanapada capitals. Alright. But the way UPSC asks is very unfamiliar Stone Age sites that you would have never heard at all in any of the map books that you prepared. Right? So usually the Stone Age sites that we are familiar in Tamil Nadu would be what? Paleolithic site of Adirambakam or Adichanallur. Right? So these are the sites that we will be familiar with. But UPSC would ask some site in a very remote part of Tamil Nadu, which nobody would have even heard of. Okay? So questions from expected areas like Paleolithic, Mesolithic sites are turning out to be difficult. And UPSC is not asking you the capital of a very prominent Mahajanapada like Avanti kingdom. Right? So what is its capital? No. They ask you some minor Mahajanapada, and that too, it's simply, and that too when you see those parts of Uttar Pradesh, right? There all the Mahajanapadas are very closely clustered with each other. And there if a particular capital is given, and if UPSC is asking you what is this particular place, it's a capital of Mahajanapada, now you get confused. Okay? Whether this is Koshala or whether this is Bridges or whether this is some other Mahajanapada, Avanti, not Avanti, some other close by Mahajanapada. So now you get troubled. So this is what actually makes the map sites, scoring in map, actually difficult in the last 2 or 3 years. Alright, and not only that, UPSC in the last 2-3 years has been more focusing on pilgrimage sites, sites associated with religious instances, mythologies, right? Places where Shiva's different forms have been manifested. Such kind of questions have been asked. Alright, a Jain pilgrimage site. This would be another site that will be given. So these are areas that we don't really focus, right? And can you believe UPSC has given a small dot in the southern part of West Bengal, and it has asked, it's a prominent Buddhist monastery. We all know in the northern part of West Bengal you find Vikramashila, but in southern part of West Bengal we really are totally clueless. We know the prominent Buddhist monasteries. We have one at Amaravati, Nalanda, Vikramashila, Purushpura, Peshawar, Taxila. So those are all some prominent ones, but this is a monastery established by a Pala king, which usually we don't focus at all. That is why I say map sites are really becoming troublesome in the recent years. But let me also share my way of how I used to prepare for map sites, right? And my way of preparing would give me at least 500 to 600 sites of my own preparation. It's not like I take a map book. The thing that I hate about map practice is that one book which is called as a map book. You may use it for later reference. You may use it for revision. You may use it for testing yourself. Whether you may use it for easy references. Like as soon as you see a map, you're not able to immediately think about the place. Immediately see an answer. Oh, now it strikes you. Just for that verification purpose, you can make use of this map book. But my methodology of how I used to prepare for map is something very different. And let me share that with you. But it is shared with the same caution that no matter what you do in map, I don't think it is possible to get more than 50% of the places correct in map. And no wonder the cutoff has actually come down not cut off, the total marks that are scored by aspirants, except for, see, there are always tail enders. On the lower side you have some very low scorers, on the top side you have extreme high scorers, but on the whole the bell curve is concentrated in few areas, right? Yes, there could be somebody in paper 1 who could have got, even let's say out of 250 marks, they could have even got something like 140 marks, possible 150 marks, right? But those will be very few. Most aspirants, even people who have cracked this exam with 270 marks, many of them I know have only got 40 to 50% map sites perfectly right. The reason is because UPSC goes and asks such kind of difficult question. Look at this. See, when you see this question paper, right, the first 5 or 6 sites you will not have any idea about, because as I told you, these are lesser known sites. These are not the prominent sites that you find in your Upinder Singh or you find in your map books. See, today it is possible to go and prepare a list of all these sites and give it to you. But what is the assurance that the same sites will even repeat in the next year, right? But that doesn't mean that you should not prepare for map. You should prepare, but in a different way. You should prepare in such a way that what you prepare actually you are able to remember it on the day of the exam. It's not like you are given some 600, 700 map compilation together, you start mugging up each and every data. That is definitely not the way to prepare for map. Okay, so let me share my own strategy of how I used to prepare for map. So this is my Upinder Singh, the textbook that I used to read as an aspirant. And let's say when I read a particular chapter, let's say I read chapter 2, the hunter-gatherers of Paleolithic and Mesolithic ages. So when I read this particular chapter, whenever I come across a particular site as I read the content here. So let's say when I read about this, I get to understand that in places like Odai and Hathnora, we come across human fossils. The minute I come across those places, I immediately make it a point to write it down here in the top margins of the pages, right? And so is the case with Bhimbetka, which I have come across in this particular page. So I immediately make a note of it as Bhimbetka. And it just goes on for all the places, Didwana and Kalpi. So it goes for each and every chapter as well. You see, this is again the same chapter in Bagor, Mesolithic, Chalcolithic sites. And this is a chapter on Neolithic sites where I have written about Mehergarh. The first site that I come across, I immediately make a note of that here, right? And it just goes on and on like other sites. So why am I doing this? The reason is because as soon as I read this chapter the next time, when I do the second revision or the third revision of this chapter, whenever I read this page, immediately these sites, it falls on my memory. And when it falls on my memory, slowly I start actually what can I say? So slowly I'm able to locate this particular site in a particular time context. So I'll definitely know that Dam Sadat is actually related to Neolithic chapter, right? So I know that it's in the Neolithic site categories. Okay, so it's to get this kind of an idea. That is why I start noting all the map sites in the top part of the margins. And once this first level of noting is done, next what do I do is I take a map, and in this map on the back side I write down, I just copy all the sites of a particular chapter. For example, in this chapter, let's say there are 20 sites that I have encountered. All the 20 sites I'll write it down here, and now find out where is the location and mark it, right? So see, you don't need this grid system, drawing all the lines and all of that is useless, right? Once you can do this practice, just get to know 20 sites from each and every chapter. And once you know the 20 sites, make a note of it in the back side of the map and make a plotting of those sites on the map and keep on looking at the map every single day. So that is enough. And when you know about Dam Sadat, you know where is it going to be located. Now you would want to know some description about it, and the description, you know in which page to look for, right? And next time when you read this back side of the map, you know there are 20 sites in that. And in the 19th site, there could be a place. Okay, some Neolithic site could be there as a 19th place. But when it's a 19th place, you know the description of that will be there in the ending pages of this particular chapter. So it's easy to locate description about that particular site. And if you can do this practice continuously, consistently, you don't need to actually purchase any map material. You don't have to buy and purchase any courses on map or anything, right? You will have your own material. So 20 places per chapter. Easily you'll have some 300 to 400 sites from the texts alone. Okay, and in addition to that, you have a lot of sites which you will be finding in the different maps like these. There are so many other sites, right? So put together, you will definitely have 1,000 sites at least, and it's very easy to keep on revising them as you keep revising the textbook again and again and again. All right, so this is what you'll have to do as you travel pages through Upinder Singh. All right, so now that you have known how I used to prepare, you can make this as a part of your daily routine, because every day you're going to touch your history books, right? Make sure you touch your Upinder Singh, your Ancient India book on a daily basis. And as I told you, you can write down all the different places. Make sure every day you touch upon 10 places at least. Just 10 places that you have noted down yourself. These are not the 10 places that has been given in some random market material. Just because self-study material has these map sites, let me start mugging them. No, that's not the way to approach. From the sites that you have made yourself, because you read the content, you came across places like Ahichatra, right? So when you came across such places, you should know, okay, in which context, in which chapter did the word Ahichatra even figure? Is it in northern black polished ware, or is it in painted grey ware chapter? Where did it actually figure? You know, so that's the way how you actually relate. And when you can relate it to a particular chapter, when you can relate it to a particular time period, you will be able to know the allied aspects, all the other features associated with this particular site, right? So you can guess probably what can be the second point and third point, that description that you will be writing. Not everything comes as a result of blind memorization, okay? And I'll focus on map classes in the future before your mains. Like 2 weeks once we'll have some map discussions, right? So the hope is before your mains at least 100 prominent sites from predictable areas at least can be mastered. See, I'm not concerned about the 30 to 40% very tricky questions. I'm only concerned if you're going to get those 40 to 50% of predictable areas correct or not. If you can do that, you are a topper material. You are in the race. If you cannot even do that, that is the problem. You are not expected to know things that others don't know. You are only expected to know things that others also know, right? When it comes to map, so I would say that is the way to go about, and let's focus on how to strengthen your map in the upcoming days and weeks. All right, so the last detail is I have a Telegram group, a channel in which we have really potential aspirants as members, and many of them are those who have written previous mains. So if you are someone who have watched this lecture till now, it means that you are able to connect to what I actually say. So I would also recommend you to become a part of this Telegram group, Telegram channel, in which you will be able to see how best practices in writing is implemented. For the same question, I'll be posting questions on a daily basis. I don't run a test series because I find it's too much of a burden on myself as well as on the aspirant to keep on loading them with questions. But I believe in the efficacy of one thought-provoking question, right? Even if I can provoke a strong thought in your mind with one question a day, and as a result of that one question, if you're able to go and spend at least 1 or 2 hours reading on things that you don't know, I feel that's the whole purpose of this 85 days. So that is what you will find happening in this group, where every day a question will be posted, a question that really tests your knowledge, pushes you to the levels of learning, right? And when you struggle, now you start learning. And when you struggle, when you start learning, when you try to answer that, when you see others answering it, now that creates a sense of wanting to improve yourself, right? So you'll find that happening in the group. Plus, in addition to that, you'll also find my content on all the gray area topics across all 4 parts of history syllabus. There are so many gray area topics for which you don't have one ready-made material. So you will find my material being posted in the channel. I'm sure that can save you a lot of time, and my material is not simply blind cut, copy, paste. I would ensure that there is a good narrative built inside the material, so that you feel connected to the material. It's not like you should be dumped with information to memorize, but you should be exposed to interesting ideas, as a result of which something becomes useful for you on the day of your exam. So such kind of my own material compilation that I'll be posting on select topics you'll find in this channel. All right, and if you're a part of this channel, you can always connect to me as whenever you read a content, right? You can always share your resource with me, get my opinion on whether the content that you're reading is really worth doing it in the short span of 85 days or not. It's for all those purpose. We have this group, we have this Telegram channel, and by messaging me over this number that I have shared here, you can be enrolled as a part of this Telegram channel. All right, so I wish you the best, and let me sign off with the promise that I'll be sharing more of my strategies on conquering history and making it your strongest area in the upcoming days. All right, so thank you.